Thank you for joining Wars of the Roses. Practical Aspects of Zen Buddhism by Manly P. Hall, an article taken from PRS Journal, Volume 18, Number 4, Spring 1959. Practical Aspects of Zen Buddhism by Manly P. Hall. It would profit little to attempt a formal definition of Zen. For our present purpose, therefore, we shall limit ourselves to an interpretation of certain of its principles in terms of the life of Western man. With due apology to the sensitivities of the ancient masters of this sect, we can suggest that Zen is a philosophy of immediacy. It has something to do with the tremendous importance of now in contrast to all other aspects or concepts of time. If now can be adequately comprehended and its implications directly and forcibly applied to action, much of the confusion which burdens us can be clarified. Man exists simultaneously in two dimensions of time. One of these consists of the concept of past, present, and future, and the other of an eternity existing forever in the state of now. Some may feel that the term present time is equivalent to now, but this is not exactly true. We use the idea of present time rather broadly. It may mean the generation in which we live and signify that which is contemporary. It may be refined to our present today, this afternoon, this evening. Distinguished from this, now stands for a precise instant. It is the living moment. Historically or chronologically, the present slips into the past, but now remains completely unhistorical. That which slips away is not now, but something which, departing, leaves now untouched. It appears to me that Zen, by taking exception to historical time, simply affirms that reality is timeless, and that past, present, and future are static concepts and are therefore illusional. It would warn us that the moment we accept the familiar time dimensions which we have been trained to regard as important, the mind comes under a tyranny of pressures which originate in that which is not now and therefore is not real. The problem is subtle, but if we simplify the austerity of the basic statement, we can begin to appreciate its practical meaning. In the life of every person, now is the focal point of all available energy. That which is done now is supported by the coordinated resources and is not subjected to the censorship of uncertain viewpoints, which may ultimately completely frustrate the action. We have instinctively realized this and regard it as a poor policy to procrastinate necessary decisions. The fact of now is suspended between the pressures of past and future. To the degree that we become over-mindful of the past, or permit it to overshadow the vital instant, which alone belongs to us, we burden our mental and emotional lives with remorse and misgiving. Likewise, if we permit our attention to focus upon the future, we may fall into the most common trap which can contribute to suffering, namely ulterior motives. Zen does not recommend that we perform any action because it is pressed upon us by past necessity, or because we hope that it shall be rewarded by future benefits. It is obvious that such an attitude must be well understood, or it will be badly misunderstood. We all feel a strong indebtedness to the past, and regard it with some justification as the possible source of practical instruction. We appreciate the art and literature, the philosophy and religion, which have descended to us as a priceless heritage. Does Zen mean that we should eliminate or ignore these apparently real benefits? Actually, I do not think that such is the case. Rather, Zen would invite us to realize that we cannot depend upon history to improve us, simply because we can remember or read or recall things that have previously happened. Zen takes the attitude that all that is real in the past is already available to us within our own subconscious psychic core. If, at a given instant, we are moved to a certain decision, This movement is itself the expression and fulfillment of all knowledge which has been accepted and experienced within ourselves. Some persons seldom read, others are not inclined to contemplate upon their own yesterdays. The temperament of the individual in relation to total available knowledge determines what part of that knowledge he will make his own. In that instant which is now, there is no time for recall or regret. In fact, most decisions are made with little consideration for universal factors. We move because we will to move, and in fulfillment of impulse and desire. The important thing, therefore, is the integrity of the instinctive impulse. This reveals our real orientation. Man is no better and no worse than his conduct at this instant, and if something must be done to improve the quality of his immediate conduct, a broad program of self-education is in some way indicated. Zen, although it regards itself as a completely emancipated science of values, is still indebted for the machinery of its basic concept to the teachings of Gautama Buddha. Zen may go so far as to deny the historical existence of this great Indian teacher, but the real purpose of this denial is to negate the historical significance of persons and ideas. Zen imposes upon its disciples a rigid program of simplification and clarification. It encourages a new kind of experience, which can come only to those who emancipate themselves from the stream of error which has flowed down through the mystery of time. All valid knowledge comes from experience, but now is also the moment of supreme experience, for it is in his immediate reaction to the challenge of the moment that man reveals to himself his total assets and liabilities. If man is insufficient to the needs of now, he is insufficient as a person. Neither excuse nor explanation is of any avail. Hopes and regrets do not correct the weaknesses of character, nor is it meaningful to hope that in a year, 5 years, or 10 years, we will improve. Normally and naturally we should improve, but we must also bear the burden of the mistakes we now cause and the laws we now break. Buddhism advances a doctrine of a self and a not-self. The self is personal, transitory, and essentially illusional. The not-self, in this case, is not a false self, but that which, by its own nature, cannot be captured in the concept of selfhood. It is a universal principle, energy, or substance, abiding forever in its own state or quality, and identical with the substance of now. The problem, therefore, is to release in ourselves the mystery of eternity, and with this release, to dissolve the tyranny of the concept of time. As the goal is the immediate experience of reality, it is the attitude of Zen that we must overcome the illusion that reality is distant, unapproachable, or, in terms of time, remote or inaccessible. The story is told that the Greek philosopher Aristippus, while on a ship, was asked by the captain of the vessel how far it is from this world to the next. Aristippus replied, "How thick are the walls of your ship?" The captain said, 3 inches. "Very well," observed Aristippus. "It is therefore 3 inches between this world and the next." In Zen, this kind of a statement might be called a koan, a sort of eye-opener, something that challenges immediate awareness of an unsuspected truth. The distance, therefore, between one state of consciousness and another cannot be measured in feet, rods, or miles, nor can it be said to be in terms of years, centuries, or millennia. To describe the true significance of metaphysical interval, the Zen master may simply snap his fingers to remind his disciple that now, this very moment, transcends the ages, embraces all dimensions, and makes possible the immediate experience of reality, if the disciple is qualified. Zen leans upon Buddhism in the essential concept of its disciplines. Man cannot look firmly in one direction and see clearly what is occurring behind his back. If he resolves to be aware only of certain dimensions of living, he closes himself to other dimensions. He cannot, therefore, proceed on the assumption that fullness of knowledge is to be gained merely by extending his present knowledge through further intensity and specialization. It may be that he is moving along a path which will end in discouragement or disillusionment. It is quite possible that he does not know where he is going and is depending upon favorable winds of fortune to bring him to a safe harbor. While the mind is captured by phenomena and held within the limitations of time and place dimensions, the experience of reality cannot be expected. Buddhism therefore taught the need for the quiet development of discrimination. The end was not addition to knowledge, but a kind of internal relaxation away from error. The person must become capable of pure thought immediately released. Pure thought, in turn, must be free from prejudice, opinion, egoism, intolerance, bigotry, or ulterior motives. It must be a liberated thought. It must be able to move through an unpressured mind and an emotional life without tension. From Favias Peking, Bodhidharma, patriarch of Zen, carrying a symbolic tea plant, he introduced tea drinking for monks keeping vigil. To most persons, such a heroic reformation of character appears more difficult even than the problems of the hour. Many choose, therefore, to struggle with problems rather than to solve the mystery of problem itself. If the disciple should ask how long it would require to overcome the psychological pressures which distort our mental and emotional natures, the Zen master might again snap his fingers. How long does it take to awaken from sleep? How long does it take to become aware of sunrises and sunsets that have always existed? How long does it take for a man to experience the universal good in which he forever lives and moves? Ignorance is a weary journey through time. True wisdom is an awakening that cannot be measured by time. A man climbing a hill does not see the view on the other side until he reaches the top of the hill. With the last step, the entire panorama becomes visible, and the meaning of the whole journey is made known. Zen is rather brusque in its statement of things. In spite of the great world teachers who have come to us through the ages, in spite of great religious and educational institutions that have been generously supported for many centuries, in spite of our own most cherished convictions which we cheerfully distribute among our friends, at a particular moment, under certain pressures, we still make fools of ourselves. We perform some unreasonable action, inconsistent with everything that we claim to be right and necessary. This is due to the tyranny of a feeling or the dictatorship of an attitude. We cannot justify it to ourselves, but we must painfully repair the damage we have done and face inevitable retributions which follow at the heels of indiscretion. Zen is aimed at the roots of this inconsistency, and of the many schools of Buddhist conviction, it is one of the most severe in its demands upon the life of the truth seeker. It measures all results in terms of the quality of activity. What we affirm means nothing. What we accept means less. Only action is a trustworthy key to the degree of attainment reached by the individual. Action cannot be controlled by intellect alone, for the mind is forever overshadowing action with qualifications and delays. Even right action arising from the ponderous mechanism of moral indoctrination is not considered adequate. Action must be completely simple, natural, and totally correct. This correctness, however, is not one measured by human authority. Man is not accountable to any other person. He is accountable only to the eternal rightness by which all action is measured. Everything we do is either real or not real. Everything we say is either so or not so. There is no place in Zen for the almost true, or the nearly right, or the approximately correct, nor is there any place for excuses. The teacher might or might not accept the excuse, but the universe will reward only the truth itself. Like most schools of Buddhist thinking, Zen does not fight its way to truth. Rather, it relaxes itself away from error. As in the case of Tao, the Zen effort is effortless. This is especially difficult for Western people. The dynamics of suspended action seem beyond comprehension. Buddhism has long claimed that silence will clarify more situations than words can ever make clear. Zen believes in a transmission of values by silence. It is said that Buddha revealed the doctrine of Zen without speaking, simply by a symbolic action. While sitting quietly in meditation, he lowered his gaze to an open lotus blossom that lay in his lap. He did not speak, but one of his disciples apprehended his meaning and received the illumination. A Japanese student of Zen once told me that all essential growth he had gained within the sect was due to one thing alone, and that was continuous observation of the conduct of the master. He saw this strict disciplinarian correct the mistakes of his disciples without any overtones of reproach. When ridiculous situations arose, the master never lost his serenity. The old Zen teacher referred to was delightfully human, however. He had a grand sense of humor, quick sympathy, and genuine understanding. It seemed that he could read the minds of those associated with him. Always, however, the little moods of the moment flowed across his features, and beneath was an undisturbable tranquility. He could be all things to all men, yet forever he was the instrument of an unconditioned reality. This reality was as distant as the stars, but as near as the immediate need of his humblest disciple. He seemed to ascend and descend, flow out and return again. He was wise one moment and a child the next. Yet in all these moods there was no conflict. He had discovered that the dynamic now enclosed young and old, ancient and modern, joy and sorrow, life and death. Gradually, this tremendous poise without pretense, this natural and unassumed strength-mildness compound, seemed to unfold as an unwritten book of unspoken instruction. The disciple began to feel this dynamic tranquility within himself. He sensed how it operated, and found it easier and easier to capture the shadow of this patient eagerness within his own internal life. The disciplines of Zen appear so methodical and so orderly, and even so commanding, that they would seem to offer little opportunity for the individual to unfold his own submerged potentials. Actually, these disciplines make possible the revelation of all potentials, because they do not contribute to the dominant expression of any single faculty or group of faculties. The student of Zen does not sacrifice the life of music for the life of mathematics. He does not become a scholar at the expense of the skill of his hands. His life does not end in an ivory tower, far from the little problems of average persons. He seeks rather the release of the full experience of the universal purpose. He is aware that the common experiences of mortals cause them to become fishermen, storekeepers, scholars, or soldiers. Therefore, all these different vocations are specializations within the complete energy of reality. If we release this energy, it will strengthen all our works and cause us to perform our selected labors with the skill, the truthfulness, and the certainty of direct apperception. If, however, we lock ourselves in our separate undertakings, we may merely force our own opinions beyond a reasonable degree. The important thing is to experience activity, to know it in ourselves, and to recognize it in others. In Japan, the Zen doctrine has always especially appealed to the military class. This may seem strange when we realize the essential pacifism of Buddhistic belief. It may well be that the hazard of the military occupation is responsible for an instinctive realization of the Zen doctrine of nowness. The soldier knows that his life may be short, that any moment may be his last, or that he may be required at any time to engage upon a dangerous or fatal enterprise. For such reasons, he must live now. He must make moments long, for years may be short. He also realizes the tremendous diversity of situations which may confer spiritual insight. Alone on a battlefield, he must call directly upon his own inner faith and resolution. He must live ever ready to die. yet he cannot afford to destroy his moments of life by fear of death. He is therefore accustomed to live on the brink of countless uncertainties and find peace in this precarious situation. Actually, war is not so different from the competitive lives of those engaged in struggles for success or for security in various lines of activities. The dynamics of the moment are more long-range than might at first appear. If the moment is lived fully, wisely, lovingly, and serenely, it may be said to cancel the past. To the Eastern mind, this does not mean escape from karma. Rather, it takes the punishment out of retribution, causing it to be recognized merely as a normal part of the processes of growth. If this immediate moment be lived correctly, it becomes the sure foundation of a proper and adequate future. Tomorrow is dangerous only because we have lived today unwisely or unrealistically. There can be no evil destiny for the person who, at every given moment, keeps the laws governing human conduct. If, however, we waste energy, regretting what we previously did, or morbidly anticipating future difficulties, we have, so to say, destroyed ourselves. For ourself is really that now in which we are capable of direct action. We all experience a common phenomenon. We notice that when we are happy, time passes quickly. When we are miserable, the hours seem endless. Yet the tempo is only in ourselves. Clocks do not reflect such differences. We also know that in sleep, we can dream a lifetime in a few moments. Reality has two kinds of timelessness. It can gather all eternity into a moment, and it can distribute a single moment throughout all eternity. It is part of the concept of Zen that the now shall expand its inclusiveness so that we dwell in it forever. By so doing, we also become perpetual participants in that kind of energy which operates only in the state of now. Thus, now is the time of all becoming. It crowns the ages that have gone before, and is the enduring foundation of ages yet unborn. The affairs of men may forever change, but the substance of reality, known or unknown, never changes and is ever present. The first man stood in the midst of the same universal mystery in which the last man will stand. Throughout all man-made time, there is a procession of mystics who have found eternity by inward experience. They lived in history, but their experience transcended history, and after it occurred, they likewise transcended history. There is a certain austerity about Zen, but it is the simple austerity of man's heaven-given internal insight. It reveals the firm decision to walk with the law, to proceed only in courses that are lawful, and to constantly cultivate the eternity which is concealed behind the mystery of time. To live totally in the now is, in a strange way, to become eternal, to lose all sight of coming and going, adding or detracting. Thus, discipline must help man to release himself from bondage to such attitudes as detract from his own immediate immortality. In the East, this may certainly lead, at least symbolically, to an intensive asceticism. But in the West, there can be a very different but equally legitimate course of procedure. The early Christian mystics dreamed of the time when the kingdom of heaven would be established upon the earth. Thus, they were not content merely to escape this world for refuge in a better one. They desired to bring this better world to this plane of confusion as an essential action of spiritual responsibility. This concept can also be applied to Zen. It is not a saintly departure into some nirvanic state. It is the bringing of saintliness into its fullest expression while in this world and while concerned with the proper duties of this mortal life. Properly understood, the Zen doctrine can help modern man to attain a serenity from within himself. Zen might not like to affirm that it is a religion, but its effects can be religious, according to our way of thinking. To achieve this, however, we must escape from the false mental concept that we have built around our theory of piety. Those who have attained Zen may appear a little different, but only because they are a little better in the fullest meaning of this word. There is no obviously sanctimonious air and no frustrating of the natural pleasure of themselves or others. I have known a number of Oriental disciples of Zen. They are consistently a happy and amusing group, excellent company, and without any trace of artificiality. They make no claims to being deep or wonderful or emancipated. They are not brittle or crude or argumentative. They are trying, according to their teaching, to instruct only by demonstrating through their own lives that they have found what most persons are still seeking, a dynamic contentment, a serenity that is active and purposeful, and a joy which is sincere and complete. What they have really accomplished, if they have succeeded in their disciplines, is a larger appreciation of everything of which we have an incomplete appreciation. They may seem a little brusque at times because they do not cater to deceit or worldly wisdom. We might recommend a simple experiment in Zen, remembering that the validity of the doctrine is to be determined only by the experience of the individual directly concerned. Let us imagine that you have your share of common burdens, and that these pile up to produce critical times which make heavy demands upon your resources, energy, and natural optimism. How would Zen help you? First of all, it might recommend that you divide the factors involved in your concern into two groups. First, such factors as have an existence that is factual, and second, those which are only the productions of your own thoughts and emotions. First, eliminate all overtones bearing upon your dilemma. Certain things are true or untrue. Certain responsibilities are factual or non-factual. These should be carefully separated, and all overtones, concerns, doubts, fears, and anxieties separated from the facts. You might be surprised to realize that the facts themselves are not nearly so serious when they have been taken out of historical context, or when we have removed from them the dramatizations with which we have clothed them. We may arrive finally at some rather simple conclusions. I owe more money than I can pay. I want things that I cannot afford. I am doubtful about the sincerity of my associates. The tranquility of my home is in danger. I fear for my health, or I am anxious about the conduct of my children. As we remove emotion from these situations, we release energy from useless and purposeless agitations. The moment that we can see the problem with complete clarity and no longer invest it with the dazzlements of our desires, the troubles have begun to shrink. We can come to some very plain answers, and we gain the full realization that certain things must be done now, and if they are done now, the problems will be further reduced. Every day that we put off decision complicates the issue. Having determined what must be done in order that our personal honor and universal law may be satisfied, we move into direct action. We have a quiet heart-to-heart talk with ourselves and fearlessly apply such measures as will bring our living within our means. We will also face the other worries by taking firm hold upon reality. If we are neglecting our children, we will mend our ways. If we have failed in our homes, we will search out the condition and correct it. If we can free ourselves from hate and jealousy and revenge mechanisms, if we can stop disliking people, often for what we have done to them, we will begin to have available vital power to do things now and do them well. From this, we shall see the merit of the Zen concept of direct action and recognize that neurosis is largely the result of neglecting the moment. If we neglect enough moments or procrastinate enough decisions, we will ultimately find ourselves unable to cope with the accumulated monument to neglect. If asked, therefore, how long it should take for us to make up our minds to lead our lives in a completely contemporary way, the Zen master may again answer by snapping his fingers. Improvement begins when the individual experiences now not only the possibility of improvement, but the fact that at this very moment he can do that which is necessary. The main consideration is that he shall not think himself out of his own realization. Actually, the course of action requires a minimum of thinking. We think mostly to avoid or evade. Moving head-on into a fact, we usually discover that there is only one correct answer, and that is obvious. All depends upon our willingness to apply the total remedy available to our consciousness. This is a rapid, lasting action against which the elements of delay cannot prevail. Most of the miseries of life result from the failure of clear-cut decisions. They cannot safely be made from the level of opinion or from our prejudices. But if we can penetrate these false values, we are not without necessary guidance, for every problem has its solution built into itself. The detached person, restraining his inclination to imagine about his problem, can discover this innate solution and apply it with the highest confidence. Thank you for watching, and please don't forget to share, like, subscribe, and comment. And if you can, please consider donating to Wars of the Roses. Links to PayPal and Patreon are in the description. Thank you so very much.